let me know if you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you,
Sorry,
Jesse.
just one quick housekeeping announcement. If you have questions, put them into the chat window and we will share it with Sanjeev as soon as the session is over. Secondly, those of you who are not in mute, please go into mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Hey, Amit. Hey, colleagues. Thanks so much for taking time out this afternoon. There is a bit of noise in the background, so I'm not sure if could request. Jesse, I hope you can hear me, but I'm going to get started. So thanks so much for your time and patience. So let's get started. So one of the things which we're going to talk about today is really living in a changed world. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm actually getting no feedback, so, but I'll keep going. And if someone, Jesse, if there's a problem, please call me on my cell phone, and I'll make sure that I do something different. But essentially, we live in a changed world. I'm going to spend about 15 minutes just going through some of the slides and talk about how Oracle leverages this great amount of data which we have in the world today. So me, for example, I continually use things like Swiggy to actually go do my shopping. When I leave my office to get back home, I typically go in, check Google Maps to actually find out what's the best direction or the least traffic for me to get from my house to home. We leverage WhatsApp on a regular basis, so there's tons of data which we actually share with colleagues amongst groups. Jesse, can you hear me okay? There's a bit of disturbance, but I'm going to go
Yes, I
ahead.
can hear you, and I'm going to mute those who are not on mute, so don't worry about it. Just speak slowly. I think that was the only request we had from the audience.
Okay, great. And I can't see the chat window, so please, Jesse, if you could just chime in whenever, if I'm going too fast or too slow. Great, thank you. So Uber is another tool which I constantly use, and so they know exactly my preferences, what type of car that I want, where I typically drive to, which country I'm in, which state, city, etc. My daughter, she's 10 years old, and she uses Pokemon all the time. So they keep track of her preferences, where she's been at to collect points. I've got another daughter who's 15 years old, and she typically shops at Flipkart. So they've got a complete profile of her data on the database. But all of this is siloed, so we haven't actually got one complete household connection. And we'll talk about how Oracle will address that using some of the latest, greatest technologies. So what we have is artificial intelligence is really woven into our lives. So we talked about the previous example where our companies know my preferences. They know when I leave for work. They know my preferred destinations. They can calculate the fastest routes for me to get from the office to a customer, and they can do those adjustments in real time. It also allows me to actually recommend certain actions and products and alternatives as I go in and browse through these various different devices and channels. So one of the things which we need to do is we need to leverage all these data points. Here we've got a screenshot which basically talks about the monthly active users across messaging apps and social networks. And we notice that across the 4 major messaging apps, the amount of data which is being collected is far greater than what we have on social networks. So how do we actually make sense of all of this data across these various different disparate data sources? So we'll talk about how Oracle actually gets to do that in a short while. But one of the key themes which we need to do is how do we make sense of this data and leverage it at the moment of truth? So, there's a short time to really delight customers. So typically when you have a delayed flight, getting an email and SMS sent to you at the right time can be really helpful because you can plan your day much better. Similarly, if you've got a lost phone and you get the service delivered at the right time, to lock your accounts. It's a great moment of truth. So how can you actually make a critical customer service decision at the right time and at a given moment, which is critical to ensure high levels of customer satisfaction? And that's really what the theme of today's webinar is how do we leverage this mass amount of data, both internally what we have in our organization, as well as externally through second-party and third-party data sources. So what we have is, I'm really pleased and super stoked to announce Oracle's latest adaptive intelligent applications, where we use decision science and machine learning to provide personalized customer experience outcomes. And that's from an e-commerce site where you have personalized offers and search, from a marketing perspective where you can actually go in and get the right communication at your channel of interaction. We talk about intelligent case management, which is nothing but identifying the history about a particular contact and recognizing them and responding to questions at an opportune time. And lastly, from a sales perspective, it's opportunity guidance. Where do we need to concentrate our focus to ensure that we deliver on our numbers and our monthly budgets? So how do we actually do this? We actually do this, leveraging the Oracle Data Cloud. Again, Oracle Data Cloud is a new service offering which we have. And what that does is it gets an information from various different third-party companies which Oracle has acquired, such as BlueKai, Datalogix, AddThis, and Crosswise. And then we leverage this third-party data along with the first-party data which we have internally in our organization. So if I step back and explain the concept of first-party, second-party, and third-party, the first-party data would be typically what an organization would have themselves. So Oracle would have a customer database, and that would be considered first-party data. We might then actually work with certain partners, such as the likes of IBM or Wipro or TCS. And that would be the partners data where we'd actually have second-party data. And the third-party data is really the unknown information, where we really have just customer profile information and attributes, but it's not really linked to a particular individual. So these customer profiles, 6 billion in number, is what Oracle Data Cloud provides you with. And there's immense value on ensuring that we leverage this data and we provide the perfect targeting to a particular customer. So we'll talk about the various different data partners which we have, which is Equifax, Forbes, MasterCard, Experian, etc. We'll talk about how we actually leverage that, and I'll go through a very quick use case where we leverage artificial intelligence and leverage this huge amount of data. There's one other last point which I'd like to take out is to make sure that we will provide you a particular link at the end of this, or you can actually just go to bluekai.com. And what it'll do is it'll actually tell you what profile data that they've collected about yourself. So you might be unknown, you might not know, but every time you go out to a particular site, whether it's to browse for a new car or to browse for a holiday or to look for a perfect gift for your wife or your daughter, it's actually collecting information. So if you go to bluekai.com, which is part of Oracle's offering, it basically tells you your profile information which is already captured. So unknown to us, the companies, several companies such as BlueKai, Datalogix, AddThis, is capturing this profile information. And what we'll talk about is how do we leverage this third-party information and bring that in both with the second-party data as well as the first-party data. And what does that end up doing? And that really provides you, so what we do is we provide connected intelligence, which can ensure from a sales perspective, we provide the next best action to ensure that a sale is closed. We provide optimized channel and audience information, so we can push information if you've got an application in the choice of a channel which that person has. So whether it's an e-commerce website or whether it's from an email or an SMS or within an application itself, within an app on your iPhone. So that's from a marketing perspective. From a service perspective, adaptive intelligence can be used to provide predictive account health checkups. And from a commerce perspective, it's really product recommendations. So this is what we're going to very quickly demonstrate in the next 5 minutes, is really take you through a use case where we have George, who is a professional photographer, and he's got a big event to shoot tomorrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a demonstration where we show you how Oracle Adaptive Intelligence is used to ensure high quality of service to George, who's a professional photographer who actually has a big event tomorrow. So George is on a website on photog.com. That photog.com is powered by Oracle Commerce Solutions, where you can go in and look at various different camera options. In this case, George is not really too happy, and he's got a particular issue. So one of the things which he does is he's actually going to go in and make a complaint. On the back end, we have Mary, who is the contact center representative, and here you can see the dashboard for Mary. So she's listening to George's interactions, and she's actually just waiting for George to actually start up the chat. And once George has actually started the chat, Mary comes back with a response to say how she could be of service. And what then pops up is a tailored dashboard with both first-party data, which is information which we have within the contact center, which calculates the current lifetime value as well as the customer health. It talks about the reviews written on external websites. It talks about the indirect lifetime value, and all of this information is being pulled in together at real time to give the contact center agent a 360-degree view of George Smith. The next thing, Jesse, I just got some disturbance, but yeah, please let me know if I'm doing okay. I'll just be going through, next 5 minutes should be wrapping up
it's good.
this particular vignette. So we have George, who's actually said that he's got a problem with his camera. All of a sudden, the focus is turning blurry, and at exactly that particular time, Mary is actually going in and using our new service offering called AI Answers, which is artificial intelligence answers. It actually goes in and starts loading several answers which is most correct for this particular individual. George then goes in to write a few more statements to say that it's 3 months old, and it gives a particular model number. And what AI Answers does is it then comes up with a particular solution, and it also has a confidence score associated with it, where it says that there is an issue with this particular camera, and that it could be replaced free of charge. AI Answers continues to listen, and as we actually provide this information back to George, it then goes out to say that, since we've got a shoot tomorrow, because we notice that this individual has said that he's got a shoot tomorrow, we then go in and we say, and it also looks at his customer lifetime score. We then go in to provide that moment of truth. So how do we actually ensure that George is the happiest that he could ever be with this particular interaction? And we go in and tell him that there's a store in the area which has plenty of inventory, where we can go in and replace this particular part of the camera for free. So we actually go push this information. One of the things which we want to also make sure of is that we give control back to the agent. So it's not just computer or machine driven. In here we have Mary, who now goes in and actually makes certain changes. So we talk about George going back and Mary going back and actually making changes in real time, so that we actually push this information back out. So it's just not the machine talking to another individual. We have Mary in the middle, who's actually making changes and actually pushing this information out. So we push this information out. For sure, George is going to be stoked about this. He says, okay, great, appreciate the information, and I'm now off to the store. So that was a great example of how AI Answers and adaptive intelligence really understands the great amount of information which an organization has, not just internally within its CRM systems, but also externally from various different third-party data sources. So what we're really pleased and really happy to announce is, adaptive intelligence from Oracle, which really helps with the automation and combining this rich web scale data to automatically deliver great customer experience outcomes and provide real-time recommendations. That's really all which I had to cover in this particular example. I just wanted to make sure that I made the most use of time, and I think, Jesse, I made it just on time. You'd given me 20 minutes, and I think I hit my spot.
Okay, great. Yeah, that I think you are at the end of the time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the other speaker go on, and we will club the questions that come in because there aren't any on the chat window as of now. So let me just move on to the second part of the session. And I at least learned some new stuff because I haven't actually seen, AI in action, so to speak, before on CX. So that was great for me. So I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Amit Sinha Roy. And as I mentioned, he's going to bring in the practitioner view of how do we use data for CX. And, Amit is actually an expert. I've heard him speak on numerous occasions. So I'm looking forward to his speech. So over to you, Amit.
Thanks. Can you make me a presenter?
Yes. Done.
Okay, it needs to refresh. Oh, one moment. It needs to do a little bit of a download. Oh. All right, never mind. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. And Sanjay, thanks for sharing that presentation. Good learning for me as well. So at Tata Communications, we have various programs which we focus on delivering customer experience across the value chain, across the buying cycle, right through to the usage area. But today, the session that I'm going to speak about what we are doing in marketing is more about the customer experience during the buying journey, during the journey of a customer coming in to explore the solutions that Tata Communications has. And this part of the platform that we've created, which I'll just walk you through today, is about making our sales and marketing interactions, the value propositions that we create more relevant for our customers, right? So let me just dive straight into it. Just a bit of background. If we look at the way the whole industry has evolved, right in the 19th century, it was about mechanization, and then the product era, which assumed that as much product as can be manufactured will be sold, right? That rapidly moved on to the sales era, where the sales team was deployed in order to move the products, because it was found that obviously if you just have more than enough product, it's not going to sell by itself. And then the marketing era, which was more about advertising and selling through various direct channels, and even selling on TV and so on and so forth, which even continues to today in some way or the other, which was more one-way communication from the organization to the consumer. In the digital era, which we are right now, things have changed. Today, the customer is in control of the buyer journey, right? They know what they want to buy. They know what they need. They are doing all the research. And typically, by the time we get in front of a customer in a B2B kind of scenario, it is said that they have already researched 60% or more, right, of the product and service that they require. So if you look at it from this perspective, in the sales era, it was more about looking at the market landscape to identify what are the gaps, what are the needs, the famous 4 Ps of marketing. Then in the marketing area, it was more talking to customers through promotions, advertising. Today, it's about listening, watching, sensing what our customers are looking for, what do they need and require through the various digital platforms that are available, and then being able to go to them with the specific proposition and the specific solution that they are actually looking for, right? So what we have done is we have created a platform here in Tata Communications using technology, using analysts, so using technology and people and processes, which allow us to build what we call actionable insights for our sales team, our marketing team, and our product teams, which we then share with them so that they are able to build these real business cases for our customers. So typically, if we look for information through various platforms that are available, you have news articles, you have analyst reports, you have annual reports, you have press releases, so myriad of information which is there. All that is nice to have, but then how do we actually correlate that? How do we stitch it all together to drive real business value? So in this case, what we need to look at is we have a three-pronged approach, and we're looking at the delivery avenues. How do we deliver this information? The depth of the information, right, as to how useful it is, and then ability to engage the audience, internal and external, in a proactive manner. So let's start with the depth of information. Obviously, if it is just a scan of a news article or some information that is publicly available, it doesn't really give the kind of impact that one would require to enable our sales team or our marketing team to have an impactful conversation with the customer. So there has to be a detailed analysis in terms of looking at the information, then combining that with internal information. For example, if we find a situation where our existing customer is possibly looking for a new solution or an adjacent solution to what we have supplied them, then there is an opportunity for a cross-sell or an upsell, right? And I'll give you some live examples as we move forward. And then the ability to then marry that together and create what we I keep referring to as an actionable insight for the sales team to look at. Now, this one's quite an eye chart, but let me not scare you with this. But starting at the top left corner, we have various ways and various systems that we use to collect the raw data. So there's LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Twitter, all the news feeds and so on and so forth. We have subscribed platforms with analysts and so on and so forth that we use. And then the analyst team filters all that information. Then they curate that into the actionable insights. The Power BI part that you see over there is about looking at our internal information, which we would then look at in terms of their billing patterns, the products that they use, products and services that they're currently using, the consumption pattern of those, the sequence in which they've purchased products and services, and so on and so forth, right? So we then take all of that and then we create a final content which is then cut across in multiple deliverables. There's a single page battle card that the sales team can use to compete with the key competitors. We support through the bid process. We actually enable our sales team to have conversations around in customer workshops, which are deep dive sessions. For country and assessments, it's basically when we are looking at entering into a new market. And then, of course, right at the end is the lead generation. So this is a big lead generation engine for us as well. And we also do some custom projects for ourselves in marketing for campaign support in terms of what is the kind of message that will resonate, what is the kind of theme that we should look at for specific campaigns, and so on and so forth. So this is, on a page, how, and Jesse and I were chatting about, that I'll present the how of this process. So this is how we actually create the actionable insight that goes, to the sales team, so they can have a more informed conversation with the customer or the prospect, and thereby add value. And of course, the customer experience gets elevated, right? So this, in essence, talks about the back end. I'll skip through in the interest of time. In terms of proactive engagement, obviously, the ability to touch the customer while they are researching on a specific product or service is of the important part here, because that is where we can actually get into the sales cycle right at the initial stage. So we do active social listening, we do various specific things on the internet to understand the intent, as we call it. We also have a capability in our platform to actually figure out if employees of a specific company are researching on other websites, technologies that we have tagged in terms of keywords. It sounds a little spooky, but it's all legal. So, for example, if Tata Communications is selling security services, which we do, and there is a bank out there whose employees are searching and researching on security services on various analyst sites and news sites because they're afraid of a hacking attack after the recent issues that's been happening with ransomware, then our system senses that and tells us that this bank in this region or country is actually looking for is researching security solutions. So what we can then do is quickly, if they are one of our prospects or customers, is tell our salespeople and solution architects, hey, this is the company in this region that's looking for the specific solution. These are the likely decision makers because we follow them on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. So here's a proposition from what Tata Communications or the company has in this area. Why don't you go and call on them and have a discussion, right? So we arm the team to go and have that conversation while this organization is researching. Obviously, if they're researching on our website and they're downloading white papers and things like that, then those are some things that we obviously get to know very early. So that's what we do. So if you look at the intent, on the left side below, you say that we know about an opportunity during its conception, and we can be proactive and have these kind of interactions with the client, while they're researching, and not wait for the RFI or the RFP to come out, right? Now, finally, in terms of the delivery avenues, is obviously if we can deliver the insight to the sales or the marketing colleague as fast as possible, then it remains fresh and relevant, because something which takes weeks to reach and get actioned becomes stale, and then therefore their impact is much lower. So from that perspective, we engage proactively with the team through our analysts. But this year, what we started doing is we are now about to launch the bot automation service, which would allow our stakeholders within the company to access these services, these reports online 24/7 using the chatbot, using technologies that we are now going to deploy within our company. So that would actually speed up the process of being able to have these insights reach our sales team, our marketing team, without having to wait for the analysts to come in and do the research, which is the traditional way that we have been working. So basically, leveraging this kind of AI, cognitive learning, and bots, we are taking the interactivity piece online, and therefore we're going to get into a system, a possibility where we'll be able to serve our internal stakeholders 24/7, and therefore make it even more effective and impactful. So with that, let me close my presentation and hand it back to Jesse.
Thanks so much, Amit. There's a very specific question for you, which is, have you actually implemented it for CX, and how does big data help CX in Tata Communications?
Okay, so in terms of, yes, this is implemented. So if you look at big data, there are multiple areas that we're looking at. Obviously, we're collating information across the internet through a platform which allows us to track what our customers are saying publicly, right, and what they are reporting, what are the kind of press releases and so on and so forth. And through the sophisticated filters and cognitive learning capabilities, we are able to filter out what is relevant for us, right? And therefore, that comes to the analyst desk. That is then actioned upon in the system. So that's the big data is, in this case, the listening that we are doing across all the internet and digital channels, be it social media, press, PR, and so on and so forth. So that's one. The other big data aspect is the internal information that we have about our customers. And that relates to the services that they use, the usage patterns of their services, the utilization, because we provide network services, security services, data center, and so on and so forth, kind of utilization that they're doing in the services that they have procured from us, and how we use that information, the internal information, to then craft a value proposition for a specific customer when we believe that they need an additional service, or maybe an upgrade, or if they're not using a service, maybe even a downgrade, and so on and so forth. So there is that external information and there's the internal information, and then we marry the two together to create the proposition for the customer.
Okay, great. And this next question, and maybe Sanjeev, you can answer this one. What are the parameters to determine what data needs to be collected for better CX? That's from Moksh Juneja.
Right. Can you hear me? So what are the parameters? So we have a bunch of parameters, right? So we actually capture all kinds of data. We capture device information. So when you're actually logging in from your cell phone, we actually capture the device details. We capture every time you've actually done a search, we capture that information. So there's a lot of information being captured and segregated and stored. It's about leveraging this data and integrating that with your customer profile information. But when you say the parameters, I would say it would really be relating to a customer contact, number one, as well as number two from a transaction perspective. So there'd be two parameters. One is for customer contact information, any level of contact which an organization has with a customer. And number two would really be the transactions which you need to capture. Moksh Juneja, I hope that answers your question. If not, I can further elaborate.
Great. So I think with that, we will wrap today's session unless there are any other questions that are going to pop up. And again, thanks to Oracle for supporting this Let's Talk CX initiative. And all of these decks will be made available, and the recording is also available on our Let's Talk CX website. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I do hope you will stay in touch and subscribe to our site as well. So thank you. Thanks also to Amit Sinha Roy and to Sanjeev Mahesh for joining us today, and to all of you for making this really special.
Thank you.